Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. The U.S. is one of the only countries in the world that guarantees citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil. As such, the 14th Amendment has long been contentious among those who fear extensive immigration from Mexico and other nations. Now, with the rise of Chinese immigration and the rapid growth of so-called birth tourism, what are the implications for immigration policy? Why does the allure of U.S. citizenship endure? And does media coverage of these issues reveal xenophobic attitudes in the West? To discuss these and other issues, we are happy to be joined in the studio today by Edward Lehman, Managing Director of Lehman, Lee & Xu, and Han Hua, a media and communications consultant. We shall also cross over to Eugene Zhong, our correspondent in Seoul. But first, let's look at this.
A newborn baby is always a symbol of hope, but especially so for some families in particular. The 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guarantees citizenship to anyone born on American soil. It's reported that hundreds of expectant women from Mexico alone come to Arizona every year specifically to deliver babies at hospitals near the border. This policy has also spawned a so-called birth tourism industry in the U.S. Every year, pregnant women from countries including South Korea and China flock to the U.S. to secure U.S. passports for their babies. It's been estimated that some 60,000 Chinese women are likely to give birth in the U.S. this year. Most of them will return to China after their children are born. When the children turn 18, they will have the choice of becoming U.S. citizens or reverting to Chinese citizenship. In early March, U.S. federal agencies, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the IRS, along with the Los Angeles Police Department, conducted a massive operation in which they raided more than 30 birth tourism-related businesses in California.
What we're investigating is the allegations that these companies facilitate the women to commit visa fraud. It's not illegal to come to the U.S. and have your baby born here as a U.S. citizen, but it is illegal to lie about that during the visa application process and when you're applying for admission to the United States once you arrive.
Some observers argue that in an era of globalization, women should have the right to decide where to deliver their babies. Others believe the practice exploits a loophole and should be more closely regulated. Meanwhile, a robust immigration policy keeps the U.S.'s workforce young. However, the debate about immigration policy reform continues. These issues remain controversial.
Welcome to Dialogue. Now, Edward, first of all, I'm not sure about why you have the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution to protect what we call those babies who are born in the U.S. would naturally be considered U.S. citizens. Why?
You know, I think it's the very core of what it is to be an American, which is a concept, it's an idea. I mean, this was a safe haven for people to come that were fleeing religious persecution originally, and then later the framers of the Constitution wrote the Constitution. We're a constitutional country, so we follow that. And this 14th Amendment was framed just specifically to say who is an American citizen. It's someone who's born on American soil. There's two ways to become an American citizen. One is to be born on American soil. Well, I guess there's three. The second one is to be naturalized. That means after you're there for a period of time. And then the third way would be you're born abroad, but you're born to an American parent or parents. So it sort of outlines what the rules are with regards to citizenship.
The real subject matter of today's very interesting discussion about the so-called birth tourism, which is booming, but is facing scrutiny from the U.S. side. Let's look at why, Helen, so many young mothers, expectant mothers, go to the United States. Do you think they have enough risk assessment before they make their way to the other side of the Pacific Ocean?
I think that birth tourism is regarded as type of tourism. So people can go to the United States for leisure, for sightseeing, for some specific purposes, just like birth. So it provides more choices to the Chinese young middle class people to have more choices. Especially, to go beyond this one-child policy, to give them the freedom of choices to have one more child. And with the income increase of this middle class, Chinese middle class, so it's good for them to have this kind of choices.
Is it legal or illegal?
It depends who you ask. I mean, again, reactionary people. There's been people from the Congress who've said this is illegal and this is a loophole and this is whatever. And they say these kinds of things every 30 years, 50 years, whatever it is, 100 years, with a different group of people. First, it's the Italians, maybe then it's the Jewish people, then it's the Polish people, now it's the Chinese. I mean, so I don't really pay much attention to those people. I think it's just a reaction of an immigration nation. It's reactionary people who want to bring up the ladder, if you will. And it's just not American, Frank. I mean, it's American to say whatever you want, but it's just not American to stop this process.
And there's yet another assumption, Helen, that those expectant mothers from China do not want to stay there after giving birth. They want to come back. So there's the allegation that they want to buy the birth, the citizenship of their babies. Do you agree?
Yes, partially agree, because still, as I said, they want to give their next generation more choices. When we are all aware that the educational opportunities now is still, U.S. is still the best to provide this educational opportunities when their children grow up. The most recent figures show that the Ivy League universities in the States, they are accepting a few numbers of mainland Chinese applicants, but on the other side, the Chinese Americans, they have more opportunities to get into those best education opportunities. So I think that is one of the biggest reasons that the middle class young Chinese people are giving the birth to their children as a U.S. citizen. And back to the topic of whether it is legal or illegal, I have something to add that strategy-wise, just like Edward said, we don't want to, to go that deep into the 14th Amendment of the United States. I just want to say there might be some flaws in this visa application process that might, trigger some illegal problems down the road when they give birth in the United States hospitals, or when they try to avoid some taxation or the heavy hospital bills. In that process, if that process can be improved, it is totally illegal. It just provides more opportunities for them.
Anything wrong with the visa policy?
I think that there are people who are saying that there's something wrong with the visa policy. Maybe that you should have a clause in there that says, are you expecting a child or not? I'm not sure that gets to the core of what our country's all about.
What are those specific benefits for those born on the American soil to enter a good university in the United States in terms of the tuition fees?
Well, as a guy who went to such a good university, I'll tell you what is that right now statistically 17%. I think it was I think 3 years ago, 17% of all those who have been admitted to the Ivy League schools are Asian Americans, and then now that's gone to 21% as of this year. So that's quite a large number. Legally, there's actually a lawsuit been brought that says that they're keeping the quotas down for Asian Americans to go in.
Prestigious universities in the United States do have this policy quota, right?
They do.
Yeah.
To keep the percentage of Asians down to a certain level.
No, well, yeah. I mean, it depends who you ask. I mean, Mr. Obama.
I'm sorry for this glass ceiling.
No. One can argue that Mr. Obama is a beneficiary of the affirmative action, which is what we call, which means that his grade level might have been not as high as another similar candidate who was from another race, and therefore he was able to get into Columbia, he was able to get into Harvard. There's an argument that can be made. I'm not one to make either argument, but what they're saying now...
I'm sorry for the victim who's been squeezed out by President Obama as a candidate for the university.
I'm
sorry for him. Or
no, I don't feel sorry for him at all. I think I think you become a success no matter what university you attend or you don't attend.
Yes.
To be honest with you, I think it helps you, and every parent wants to get their child help. And wants them to go to a prestigious university, but that doesn't mean you're going to be guaranteed to be a success. And so I think the person who didn't get in, probably if they had grit, they would do well anyway. Mr. Obama did well, and he's doing great, and so good for him. So maybe affirmative action was positive.
What he says is, yes, we can.
But I mean, to go back to your point, Young Ray, on what Helen was saying was that in this lawsuit, they're making a lawsuit now saying we should have more Asian Americans, okay, because our grades are good. And you have to be an American citizen to have that standing. And so what Helen is saying is that if you're an American citizen, like these ones that are born in the United States, they can actually bring a lawsuit and say, hey, open up your policies, take a look at it, Ivy League. So.
Okay, thank you very much. China is not the only country in Asia where expectant mothers would embark on a journey to the other side of the United States for the birth of their second or third baby, hopefully to become an American citizen. South Korea is yet another example. Let me cross over to Ms. Eugene Jiang for her comments on perhaps the same or similar practice for some of her nationals. Hello.
Hi, Yang Rui.
Hi.
Eugene in South Korea.
Why do South Koreans and other Asians continue to seek citizenship in other nations? What is the appeal of a foreign passport from your perspective?
Well, I think South Korea has it's in a unique situation because of South Korean men who have to serve in the army. As you know, South Korea requires all able-bodied men between the ages of 18 and 35 to complete at least 21 months in the military as a deterrent to the DPRK's aggression. So many parents, especially when they find out that they are about to have a son, they would want to acquire some sort of different nationality. It could be American nationality or Canadian or any other country outside of South Korea, so that their son may evade military service, which of course is not the best way to evade or military service, but that seems to be the trend. It's not a recent trend. In fact, it's been going on for years.
Okay, Jane, stay there. Let me come back to the studio discussion with Edward. Do you think the same policy is being applied, or I mean the same mindset could also be possessed by some of our nationals in Taiwan, where you also face the same issue of being drafted by the military?
We have been a haven, by the way, for people who are avoiding military service, and we've been also people have tried to move away from us when we had mandatory military service as well. So I don't see this as a new issue.
Okay. Now, Eugene, I'd like to know more about why or why not some of the Korean birth tourists go to the United States. Why are the risks? What are the risks? For example, do you think those risks could outweigh the benefits? Tell us more to clarify this issue.
Well, I don't think there are more risks for Koreans than for any other nationalities for those trying to give birth in the United States illegally. So I don't think it applies just for Korean people. If I may talk about the benefits of a U.S. passport, a number of benefits come to mind, one of it being education. Some mothers here feel that having a U.S. passport could give their children benefits of a better public education. A Korean newspaper based in the United States, I was just reading their article, quoted some pregnant women who arrived in Los Angeles saying that they are doing this not for the short term, but for their children's education in the longer term, when the child has to go to high school or university. They said they don't want their son or daughter to go through the intense and competitive student life that they experience back at home. And another mother also said the money, which they said it cost them about $20,000 or more for such trips, may seem like a lot right now, but she said she sees it as a worthy investment if you think about all the money that goes into private tuitions for the children as they grow up. So that's one benefit that could come from having a U.S. passport.
Thank you very much. That's Eugene from Seoul, South Korea. Welcome back. Edward, I wonder if you can tell us more about the allure of an American passport. For example, when children born in the United States turn 21, they can sponsor their parents to become legal American citizens. Is that true?
Yeah, no, it is true, and as it should be. I mean, reuniting families, if they want to live in one country, that's a good thing. I think the idea of international borders is going away. I think with the internet, with other things, I know it's difficult for people to swallow, but we're going to have to wake up to that one day.
If you look at the territorial disputes in the South China Sea, that's not the case for China. Don't be naive.
No, it's always going to be those issues.
Soft topics.
Soft topics. But no, I mean, it is a law that at 21 they can do that. And the other thing that's very vague, and no one really understands this, and as a lawyer I've looked at it for many years, this idea of having two passports, you say, well, you can't hold two of them. It's not really true. I mean, there's no international repository for international passports saying you can't hold this or you can't hold that. When you come into a country, if you have multiple passports, you only have the protection of the country that you're coming in on. But I think that there will be a body of people that would disagree with me, but I'm just saying that nobody's policing that exactly, and people can certainly renounce their citizenship. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So, but America's not the only place where they're, having tourism, and I think the term is derogatory, birth tourism or these maternity motels. I think it's all derogatory. I think that the issue is it's legal, it should be accepted, and that there's some people who want to use these kind of derogatory terms to make it sound seedy and disreputable.
Are you saying that this is part of domestic politics in your country?
Absolutely. I think, no, it
I have to leave you there for the moment. You're watching Dialogue with Edward Lehman and Helen Hanhua. We're discussing the implications of American immigration policy as well as the boom of birth tourism in the United States. We shall be back in a few minutes. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Well, would you clarify the policy of one-child or family planning policy in China? For example, is it a practical purpose for expectant mothers to avoid the violation, the cost of violating family planning policy? For example, paying $8,000 US to $80,000 would help them avoid fines equal to $40,000 US for violation of the country's one-child policy. What do you think of the calculation here?
Well, it's an investment calculation. It provides them more opportunities or choices by either paying fine here or making an investment for the future children education or growing up. I think people or media pay more attention to the Chinese going to the United States to do the birth tourism than the other countries is because of this one-child policy. But from the positive side, it kind of set off the downside of the one-child policy brings to the country's economic development, especially we're facing the challenge of the population dividend fading away. So, and by paying fine or making some investment, it's different families, decision or their own personal investment choices.
Edward, do you expect to have a greater boom of birth tourism since the U.S. government has decided to give Chinese travelers a 10-year visa policy? Do you think more expectant mothers from China are likely to take advantage of some of the loopholes of the policy?
Absolutely, and as they're entitled to. I mean, Mr. Obama obviously...
Do you expect more crackdown upon the maternity hotels in Orange or other places of California?
Yeah, like Helen said, I think that they can get them on taxes. I think they can get them on not reporting, whether they're being honest or not honest. If you have a 10-year visa, just think about it. Helen could get one tomorrow and then 3 years from now be pregnant and go there. There's not anything deceptive about that. So, I don't see how that's going to work. I think that, people are going to emigrate or people are going to spend long periods of time there. We don't have the mechanism like China does.
Look, here is a distinction, Edward and Helen, between the Chinese expectant mothers and those from Latin America, because most of those who are Latinos are said to be just staying there, staying put. After giving the birth, they want to be naturalized there along with their baby, but the Chinese will just come back. They just want to have a certificate about the birth of an American citizenship, period. What do you think of this distinction?
I would say from the Chinese perspective, just as I said, it's make an investment in the future. It's like you calculate the ROI, the return on investment for the future. It's like you deposit some savings by paying $20,000 to $40,000 for a birth of a U.S. child. And then 18 years from now or 21 years from now, the child have more choices, either to choose the citizenship of their parents' home country or the citizenship of a United States citizenship. That's a kind of investment. It's not that the downside that, or the pessimistic that we're not pessimistic about the China's economic development. So we want to just stay in the United States and don't come back.
Helen, you know, we have a very draconian hukou policy in China, the so-called household registration practice and the policy. Does that mean those who violate the one-child policy by giving birth on the U.S. soil will not face the same punishment? Because after all, when they come back, it will be very difficult for them, for their children, the second child, to get registered with the hukou system. Will that be a major problem for the young parents?
Well, actually, theoretically, they can. If they can, you know, just set aside their a U.S. birth certificate, storage somewhere, and they can still apply for a, you know, Beijing hukou or Shanghai hukou.
Will they be punished?
They will. They need to pay fine for this.
But the new baby is an American citizen.
Yeah, but let me finish that. If they were given a Shanghai or Beijing citizenship, they can be waived, you know, from this high tuition cost when being an American baby to get a study here in China. To get admitted into the local school instead of international school. And if they want to get into the international school, they can still show up their U.S. birth certificate. So at the end of the day, it provides more opportunities for the parents and the children to choose, you know, between several choices.
Helen and Edward, are birth tourists exploiting the U.S. system, or is it a fair practice?
You know, I think it's a fair practice myself. I think everyone knows the 14th Amendment, or they should know, or somebody that they know would know. And so I think that you'll have people that will say that's exploiting it, sure. But I think that those people are misguided.
Now, the issue of tax fraud threatens to dominate some of the headlines.
Sure.
Do you think we should take issue with this from the American perspective instead of talking about the maternity hotels?
Yeah, I mean, the way that they get everybody in America is on taxes. I mean, so, you know, just take a look at the taxes and make sure that they were filled out correctly, or you're reporting the income or not reporting the income. And so what I see, though, is I don't see that this is going to be a huge problem. I don't think that, like you were saying, I think that people are going to go over there, have the children born there. I don't think that the rest of the family is going to come. I think that they have enough money and they want to live in China and work in China. But I think that the people who are operating businesses there are exposed, not the people who go there, and certainly not the people who are born in that are just infants and young people. But yeah, I think that that's where they will eventually get them. I know these reports came out, and then it was sort of a bang and a fizzle. There was no news about shutting them down, actually. It was just their business as usual.
Do you think more of those expectant Chinese mothers should be briefed about immigration policy and about all other legal issues concerning their stay in the United States and what's going to happen to their babies who are born on the American soil? The reason why I ask this question is some of the news reports said recently that some Chinese expectant mothers who gave birth to their children in the United States managed to escape from detention. What I call detention is actually an order or a ticket for the young Chinese mothers to stay put, to stay there and to cooperate with the investigators about what's happening in the maternity hotels. But they were scared. They managed to escape, and then the FBI issued a warrant, a sort of a ticket, and those young Chinese women would never ever make their way back to the United States. Otherwise, they'll be arrested immediately upon setting their foot to the soil of the United States. Is that true?
Well, no. I mean, this is the irony when you watch enough television that you think that that's true. But the fact is, I mean, when you step foot in the United States and you're looking eyeball to eyeball with the Immigration Naturalization Service or Homeland Security, you have all of the protection as a U.S. citizen, as Mr. Obama himself. And they can't arrest you unless they give you a hearing and give you due process, which goes to our Fourth Amendment. So, I mean, this idea, this is sort of through shame and intimidation. Maybe this is what the government wants to put out. Maybe Inland Security or Homeland Security is trying to keep people out. But the fact is, our Constitution, our laws and regulations are to welcome people and to try to make it stable and civil for people. So detention or not detention, those are not people who've broken the law that I can see. And so, I mean, this is just bullying and intimidation by the government.
But this is a very good point you raised, that these Chinese young parents need to be educated or trained more from the very beginning of starting the whole process, like how to fill in the form, by telling the truth, how to face
Edward,
it.
it might be a good business for you. Yeah, to run the consultation company.
I think I missed the boat on that one. Okay. I think there's like 500 of businesses going on already.
Those young Chinese ladies got to be enlightened.
Yeah, nothing like dealing with a pregnant young Chinese woman. That would be very easy to do.
The industry itself needs to be more transparent.
No, it should be. Yeah, I agree.
And legalized.
Exactly. That's an issue of transparency. The last question is very much about the chance for those who were born in the United States to be elected U.S. president, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because they got the legitimacy for qualifying, right?
That's
in
correct.
the campaign.
That's
so
correct.
the
That's
Chinese
another
authorities
chance.
should encourage more young ladies to go there, so that we're going to have more Gary Locke, or other Chinese Americans, right?
No, but you're
who stand a good chance of being elected the next president of the United States.
Great, and I think it's why not? And the whole thing is that that we're an immigration nation, we're open for all, and just follow the rules and regulations, and I think it's great. Like I said, I think with the 10-year visas, a lot of these barriers are going down. I mean, really, why even immigrate when you can be there for 10 years and you can do whatever you want to do? So, I mean, I think it's great.
With alleged growing assertiveness of China for its rapid expansion of the economy, more and more policymakers on both sides are talking about two giants on the collision course. We're going to have a war, we're going to have more clashes. Despite the advice from President Xi Jinping that we do not seek conflicts, we do not seek head-on confrontation with the U.S., do you think with such an increasing number of tourists across the Pacific Ocean every day on flights in and outside China, we're going to reduce such risks? China and the U.S. will just become very friendly partners, the people-to-people exchanges. More mothers of American citizens, they are proud of the birth certificates of their babies. Now with this as part of the soft power and part of China's growing confidence, we will help from yet another perspective to avert having a war, having the very rhetoric of hostilities, perhaps. What do you think of this interesting perspective?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely correct. I think Helen would agree with me. That this is going to defuse a lot of the pressure, and people are voting with their feet. I think that there's issues about milk policies here and birth and smog and all kinds of things in Beijing, for example. And this is going to defuse these worries for these people. We're only talking about, just so you know, I mean, I talked to the U.S. Embassy before this, only 2 million visas are issued a year. I mean, that's a lot, but I mean, visitors' visas. And so I don't know what the number is for birth tourism, if you will. But, this is, I think we're being highly overreactive, and the media loves to make something about
this. Is a very good new type of major power relations, since brilliant Chinese kids would get first-class education in the United States.
Right.
Thank you very much for participating in this
education tourism in the 18
Education
years.
I like that,
Win-win situation, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much. With that, we come to the end of this edition of Dialogue. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.